So, welcome everyone. This is the mock interview series, and this is about information security. We are going to cover top 20 interview questions for information security domain. Okay. With me, I have Jamin Pathak. He will be the interviewer, and I'll be the candidate. So, before we go ahead, make sure you subscribe the channel. And if you want to get understanding about cybersecurity career roadmap, every Saturday I run a free webinar. You can join the free webinar and register yourself. The link is in the description. Let's get started with our interview. Hi Jamin, how are you?
I'm good, Rajneesh. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much, Jamin. Yeah.
So, Rajneesh, my first question is, what exactly is CIA triad?
So CI triad is made up of confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So confidentiality is about ensuring that there's no unauthorized access to the data in the organization. Both these three parameters are act like a goal, a maturity for any organization. This is useful for them to create any risk assessment or decide which security solutions to be finalized. Okay, so they ensure the confidentiality ensures that there shouldn't be any unauthorized changes in the network. So only authorized people can access the data. Okay. So for this there are multiple solution placed like SSL encryption, HTTPS based traffic encryption. This all and digital certificate. This all ensures the confidentiality has been achieved. Then we have integrity, which is about which says that there shouldn't be any unauthorized changes in the network. Okay, so if a data is sent from A to B, A to Z, maybe, so it shouldn't be modified in between. So that's all about integrity. And availability is making sure our data is available all time. So this is where we make sure that nobody should really modify our data in between. So uh, there are different kind of attack that might impact the availability, like DDoS attack, denial of service attack, or ransomware related attack, where our data get encrypted and becomes unavailable for the user. So the solution is to have maybe backup antivirus solution. So this can be used for achieving maximum availability. So yeah, this is CI tried. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, Rajneesh, the next question is, what is the difference between symmetric and asymmetric encryption?
Well, asymmetric key is an encryption method in which the same key, a single key, will be used for both encryption and decryption of the data. It's fast because there is no need to have a complicated mechanism. Multiple keys are not involved; just single key is involved, so it's faster. It's used when we have a bulk data to be encrypted. Uh, so that becomes very helpful. Asymmetric key, on the other hand, is very powerful, in which the sender and receiver, while sending the data, will have to use a pair of key, a public key and a private key. It works just like our maybe email account, like our email ID and a password. We can share our email ID to anyone to send us our data with the secure method, but we never share our password, right? Because that will be used to access our data. Similar to that, in the pair of key, public key will be shared with others, but private key is meant to be kept private. So we use the private key to decrypt the data, and we use the public key to perform the encryption. So that's the difference between symmetric and asymmetric key. Yeah, encryption. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, uh, next question is, what is firewall and how does it work?
So firewall is basically a network security solution. It's a very bare minimum solution. Almost every organizations are having it. It's the baseline security solution, I would say. So it's a network security solution that's monitor and control and enforce the security policy. It looks at the incoming and outgoing traffic from our network, and either it will allow or drop the traffic based on predefined security rules by the admin itself. So it will act as a barrier between our internal network and an untrusted external network. So firewall can be a hardware-based firewall, can be software-based firewall. Even our Windows system, have systems are also having firewall as well, but it's of low capacity. It's only for that single machine. But for entire network, we need to have a large hardware-based appliances. So there are multiple vendors. We have Checkpoint, Palo Alto Firewall. We have different types of firewall. We have stateful firewall, stateless firewall. We also have next generation firewall. We have UTM firewall. So yeah, these are different firewalls that we have in the market. Yeah.
Okay. Mhm. So next question is, what is the difference between a vulnerability and an exploit?
Uh, so basically, what happened is, vulnerability is the weakness in the system design, maybe in the system software or maybe in the human. So vulnerability is like a weakness in the organization or in the security solution or any of the product. Or maybe let's say in the organization we have Windows server, or maybe we have Apache server. It's a software, right? But even a hardware can also have a weakness. If that weakness can be exploited by the attacker, that's a vulnerability, right? So the example could be like insecure protocol or misconfiguration done by the system or security bug on the application. So in fact, Microsoft run the Patch Tuesday, so where, because there are a lot of applications available by Microsoft, Adobe, and we can find their vulnerabilities as well. So even if we go to cvdetails.com or exploitdb.com, we probably see hundreds of vulnerabilities coming in almost every other day. But we can't really fix each one of them. This has to be prioritized by the organization, and this has to be done as a part of their risk assessment. On the other hand, exploit is again a software. It's a piece of software which which can be used by the attacker as an additional command to execute the additional command to get the access to the machine. So exploit can help the attackers to get unauthorized access, to perform a ransomware, maybe system encrypting the system, impacting the system, performing the data breaches as well. So yeah, that's the exploit. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Then Rajneesh, what exactly is a three-way handshake?
So three-way handshake is basically, I mean, it's altogether a different concept, but three-way handshake is the technique, or it's a TCP three-way handshake. It's used to establish the connection between the client and server, and this includes the three-step process where the client first send the message by keeping the SYN flag set to 1. Now, this flag is there in the TCP layer. So, if we look at the OSI model, there is a header added on every layer. Just like when we send a post to somebody, every department or every carrier in between might be adding their own layer, right? Similar to that, every layer on the OSI model add their own header. So on the TCP header has got something called TCP flag, and every flag indicates something. So we have a flag called SYN flag, which is like a request message. So first thing first, the client first send the SYN flag and send it to the server. It says that I want to talk to you, or maybe to verify if that specific port on the server is open or not. In case of a web server, it's usually 80 or 443, and the server receive that packet and it acknowledge it, and it also add a SYN flag saying that I acknowledge it and I'm ready to talk to you. And client get to know that yes, the port is open and I'm ready to talk. Finally, the client acknowledge it. So the SYNAC and ACK completes the three-way handshake. So yeah, that's it. And after that, the actual traffic goes onto the network.
Okay, got it. So then, what is the principle of least privilege?
Uh, well, a principle of least privilege is the state. I would say it's a framework, or you could say a practice, where you say where you say the only minimum level of access or permission would be enough for any users to perform their task. It means that but we limit the rights to individuals so that they can the rights to only what is really important. Okay, they should not be given additional access to maybe have an admin access to certain portal. If he is a normal user, he should be given relevant access only. So that's the principle of least privilege. So in that situation, organization can reduce the can reduce the privileges, and this is helpful in avoiding or bringing down the overall impact onto the risk. So implementation of least privileges controls help them to enforce the help them to enforce the principle of separation of duty, and also minimize any unauthorized access to the data, which again improves their confidentiality as well. So this is done on solutions like network access control. This is done on solutions like identity and access management tool, or PAM tools. So IAM tools are like Okta, Cisco Duo. These are very popular. Azure Active Directory. So on those solutions, the access are granted, and we can define who can access what. So we can define only the permission, what is really important, what is really minimum, bare minimum information. So that's the least privilege. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Then, what is the difference between penetration testing and vulnerability assessment?
So yeah, well, when we talk about the penetration testing, it's a altogether different exercise because it involves simulating the real attack. Okay, I think I should first tell you about the vulnerability assessment. Basically, vulnerability assessment is just about finding the vulnerability. It involves a process of identifying, discovering, quantifying, and prioritizing the vulnerabilities in the system. As I said earlier in your earlier question, uh, every organization discover hundreds of vulnerabilities every day, so they can't really keep fixing all of them. They have to prioritize it, and then they start working with it. This is the part of vulnerability assessment process. Okay, typically it is performed by the vulnerability scanning tool to discover those vulnerabilities. These tools can be Tenable, Nessus, Qualys, Nexpose. So these tools are useful in discovering the vulnerabilities, and these are usually shown by CVE number. And then it can be CVE 2024, then a number. So every year it starts with the year and then the unique number. So once we have the vulnerability, then we work in prioritizing it based on different factors, like if the exploit is available, what's the impact on the network, and everything. Now, penetration testing is a process where we go a step ahead, where we actually simulate the attack on the system by identifying the vulnerability and then assess its security posture, where we actually don't stop at finding the vulnerability. We also try to exploit it to understand if our existing controls are enough to stop them, enough to detect or prevent them or not. So this gives even more better confidence scores to justify if this security control should be implemented, or this security control should be improved or should be replaced, or whatever the mitigation is. But penetration testing is the process where we do the vulnerability scanning, and then we perform the exploitation, or in general security testing. For web applications, the penetration testing involve finding the vulnerabilities like SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and then exploiting those vulnerabilities. Okay, so there are multiple tools available for penetration testing. For web application, we have Burp Suite, OS Zap. For exploiting on any other kind of vulnerability, we can even use Metasploit, which is inbuilt in Kali Linux operating system as well. So yeah.
Okay. So, what is social engineering and how it can be prevented?
Uh, so basically, social engineering is the manipulation. I would say is the manipulation, tweaking the individual behavior, uh, and gaining the confidential information, which wouldn't have been possible otherwise, or perform any action that compromise the security as well. Just like we call someone at the right time, we might be creating a scarcity that we have a discount coupon that might expire in 1 hour, or maybe any other kind of situation where we create even more urgency, saying that something happened in the hospital, you have to rush it right away. Maybe someone know about you personally, so he can possibly tweak a text message or send an email accordingly. This involves techniques such as pretexting, phishing, baiting, tailgating, multiple such techniques. And there are different methods involved as well. Like you can send a text message to reset your password, or maybe saying that someone has tried accessing your Facebook account, reset the password right away. And under that, you have a link. That link, the moment you go on that link and try resetting the password, it might be a fake website, and as a result, the attacker might retrieve your credentials as well. So this becomes really challenge. And there are multiple. This only, I mean, I think organization run multiple solutions to mitigate such thing. The one of the most effective solution in my experience have been the security awareness training, where we perform the phishing simulation training program as well, where we actually send an email which looks actually like an social engineering attack, and we see how the user respond, and then we can then focus on that specific or weak employees accordingly. And then, of course, there are multiple other solutions like implementing policies, procedures to handling sensitive information, deploying additional security controls in the network to filter email, to contaminate email as well. So these are some of the solutions. Yeah.
Okay. So then tell me, what is a 0-day vulnerability?
So 0-day vulnerability is, it's again a vulnerability, but it's a software vulnerability that is actually unknown to the vendor itself. Usually, what happens is whenever there is a weakness in the system, it's a job of software vendor or maybe security researcher to report it. Most of the time, it is reported by the vendor itself. But if there is if there is a software vulnerability that is unknown to the software vendor, or maybe and yeah, of course, software vendor itself, which makes it exploitable by the attack before the patch or the fix is even available. So that becomes a 0-day, because the 0-day is a vulnerability that poses a significant risk, because nobody knows what would be the patch of it, because the attacker can exploit them to launch the targeted attacks, and without any warning itself. So mitigating this strategy involves identifying malicious pattern, only by using prevention techniques like IPS or firewall or antivirus solution won't be enough. To understand this, we'll have to focus on IDS solutions. We'll have to focus on more human-centric approach, where we have to have stock where people are monitoring every suspicious activity. We have EDR solutions, so making sure we keep updating new security updates, patch them promptly. We have network segmentation, to limit any kind of network impact as well. The benefit of network segmentation is we stop a possible lateral movement. For example, even if one system get compromised, other system might not be compromised as well. So that could be done by using network segmentation, where we know that, okay, this is our crown jewel, but this is the server which consists of all my and critical information. So I can keep this server in together different segment, in a different VLAN, or in a different by you applying different security blocking multiple ports and everything, and allowing only relevant ports. So that is network segmentation, and this limits any possible exploit impact by the exploit. So yeah.
Okay. Then tell me what is the importance of access control in information security?
Well, access control, it's basically, again, as you asked a question in the beginning, was CI tried, it plays a very, very important role in confidentiality, because access control ensures that only authorized user can access the server or resources in the network, and it performs a specific action within the system for the users as well. So the major purpose is to prevent any unauthorized access. Once we stop any unauthorized access, data breaches can be stopped, insider threats, possible insider threats can be stopped by enforcing security policies and permissions, right? So we can enforce two-factor authentication. So even if someone knows someone's username password, he still need to get the two-factor authentication, or a one-time password on their mobile phone, or maybe on their app. So access control also works on a three important factor, which is authentication, authorization, and logging or accounting. So authentication is authenticating that user by their credential, and authorization is making sure they can only access what they are meant to be. But again, this comes to again the least privilege policy principle that we discussed earlier. And then if we implement a strong access control in the network, we improve our confidentiality score, and we protect our sensitive information as well. And this is even very important from regulatory compliance point of view. So yeah.
Got it. Then tell me what is the difference between authentication and authorization?
Right. So as I just said in the recent questions, authentication is a process of verifying the identity of any users, or probably any system, or anything in the network. Right. It can, if you have a right credentials, then it confirms that the user is who they or he claim to be through his username, user ID, email ID, password combination, and biometric, or maybe security token. On the other hand, authorization is the process of identifying or determining whether the authenticated user, because authorization start once the user is authenticated. Once you are authenticated, then the authorization starts, which says that whether the authenticated user has the necessary permission to access a specific website, or resources, or servers, or specific actions into the system. So it compares the user's credentials against the access control list and security policy which has been granted. Okay. So for example, we have remote access VPN. I can get authenticated by entering the right username and password, maybe two-factor authentication as well. Maybe I'm an attacker, or I have stolen it from somewhere else, or I got it from dark web. Right now, uh, even if I got the access to it, now it depends what access the user is having now. If he is a normal employee, he will be having a normal access to the network, right? So he won't get the admin privileges in that case. So that involves the authorization process based on the user authentication. So yeah, based on the
Mhm.
user security policy. Sorry, based on the security policy, he will be granted access to the resource. So yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Then tell me, what is the difference between encryption and hashing?
Sure. Encryption is basically converting one form of data into another. So for this, it uses the cryptographic function. We discuss about symmetric and asymmetric key. We can use any one of them for encryption. But again, with encryption, there is a two step process. I mean, we can encrypt the data and we can decrypt it and see the data again, right? For example, I can send hello to you, and it will be encrypted by me. You get it, and you can decrypt it by On the other hand, hashing is converting a data into a fixed size string character by using any hashing algorithm. So I can hash hello message, and once it get hash by using hashing algorithm, you will get a fixed length string of maybe 128-bit character, but you can't really decrypt it. So the purpose arises because the purpose of encryption is about securing the data, making sure that we have confidentiality. No other person can see the data. Only me and you can see and talk to each other. Nobody else can listen to our conversation. On the other hand, the purpose of hashing is to achieve the security. Is to make sure our data can be retrieved in a large database, or maybe security and achieving integrity as well. So I'll give you just some use cases. People use the hashing for checking the integrity. Let's say I have a file, right? I can create a hash value of that entire file, 128-bit hash value. It doesn't matter what's the size of the data. I'll always get a fixed 128-bit size based on the function. Maybe if I'm using SHA-128, SHA-256, there will be different character. Now, once I send that file to you, you might wonder, it seems like it is being sent by Rajneesh, but what if it might be altered in between? So, what I can do is I can send you a file and I can send you a hash. Now, you can again convert that file into a hash and check if the hash value that you receive and the hash value that I sent it is matching. Okay, so you check the hash value from A and hash value at B, and you verify if the hash value is unchanged. That means the data is unchanged. Okay, so that means the integrity has been maintained. That's the one use case of hash. Another use case is also to secure, to save the password on the website. So for example, we hear the news like a LinkedIn database has been compromised on or leaked in the dark web. So only those, usually only username is plain text. People, attacker, or the in the dark web, the email ID is actually exposed. Password is actually hashed. So it's get hashed into a fixed at 128-bit, which cannot be retrieved back. As I said, it's a one unidirectional function. So a hacker will never know about the actual password because it's a hash value of 128-bit, which becomes very difficult to get it back. So that's where it becomes very helpful of performing the hashing. So it's useful in data integrity verification, password storage, and even digital signatures as well. So yeah, that's the difference between encryption and hashing.
Okay, then tell me, Rajneesh, what is the principle of defense in depth?
So defense in depth is the talks about implementing the security controls, the security solutions in multiple layers. Instead of just in the flat architecture, we can implement that in a layers, saying that the security controls will be implemented in perimeter, then on the application layer, then in the data layer, and then the user layer. So that way, it's actually categorized. it aims as the making sure we have a security controls at every level, so that even if someone get compromise any one of these security controls and get into it, we have an additional layer. It's actually a military term which is adopted in the cybersecurity space as well. So on the first layer, we might be having a perimeter layer, right, where we have our firewall, okay, where we have our DNS security, IDS, and all those stuff. In the next layer, we can have maybe application layer security or data layer security, where we can have our encryption, we can have our data loss prevention solutions. So a defense in depth, they also include multiple other techniques like network segmentation, access control, two-factor authentication, encryption, security awareness training program. So that's the defense in depth approach, I would say. Yeah.
Okay. So tell me, what is the concept of network segmentation and why is it important for security?
Uh, well, network segmentation is a very important concept because it divides the network, it divides the whole network into a smaller subnetwork. Just like we create VLANs, right? I mean, we create a VLAN so that one network will be in a different LAN, and it would be difficult to discover the host of another VLAN because it's easy to discover all the devices sitting on the single LAN because we can send the broadcast frame, but we can't get the information about the other network by broadcasting because broadcast message never go from one network to another network, right? So network segmentation is that approach where we create multiple small sub network, multiple VLANs, right? For example, where it exactly it's used. Let's consider an use case of PCI DSS compliance, right? This is used. Segmentation is very important there because it says that the access to the card holder data. I mean, any organization who either store, process, or send the credit card information, they have to comply with PCI DSS compliance. Okay, so what is need to be done is, if let's say I have a server, a database which maintains the credit card user information or credit card information, this has to be restricted. So one solution is network segmentation. I can keep this in a VLAN, and rest of I can probably have only one system in this VLAN or two maybe, which is really important to talk. And I can have rest of the network or rest of the application or web layer in web servers in a different VLAN, and then I can restrict the access to it maybe by using the firewall. Okay, so that's about network segmentation, where we create different sub network which restrict the discoverability, which ensures that there is no lateral movement possible. And with the help of network segmentation, we improves, increases the visibility, increase the security controls. We can monitor every activity that is happening into the network, and that's the reason many organizations are adopting this approach as a part of zero trust security framework. So yeah, that's the concept of network segmentation.
Okay. So then let's just tell me, what is the difference between IPS and IDS?
Okay, so um, let me first tell you about IDS. And IDS is basically a solution, network security solution, which monitors, detect the intrusion, detect the any malicious behavior or policy violation into the network, and then generate an alert to the admin. Now it's up to admin what action need to be taken. Whereas in case of IPS, the alert will be generated. I mean, it will detect the alert and it will also take an appropriate action. It will prevent the access, it will prevent that detected threat as well. The important question is then, why should we even have IDS? Why shouldn't we directly go for IPS directly? Well, what happened is, in the large network, when we have a lot of traffic going on, we can't because we can have a lot of false positive. if we let our system to take an action, then it might even impact the business critical application. It might stop those application. It's just a false positive maybe, right? But still, if the IPS find it malicious, or uh, or maybe it at least it feel like it's a malicious, it might prevent those access, so it can also impact the business operation. So that's why IDS is a better solution in some of the cases. And organization basically use both, but IDS is deployed in the passive mode. It actually takes the copy of the traffic. It's not deployed inline. But when we are sure that this is our this is the better solution we have a good policy, we have a strict rule about, yes, this possibly be the denial of service in any form. So I can use the IPS on those situation, and it is deployed inline. That means it is actually deployed in the direction directly in the network path itself, in the direction of the traffic, so that it can immediately take an action to stop those malicious activity. Now the way it works is very similar on both IDS and IPS. Both need to update their signature. They actually look at the header or the payload as well in some of the situation, and it can identify if there is a malicious activity. Like for example, um, when we send when our browser want to talk to Google, it adds the HTTP header. Those header, we also have HTTP agent information, which could be Chrome, Mozilla, Firefox. But if the agent information is like nmap, right, or maybe something weird, so it find it weird, I mean it find it suspicious, and IDS will generate the alert, but IPS will stop those connection right away. So that's the difference. But IPS is usually deployed in the firewall as well, and we can just activate it by having an additional license. So Checkpoint has an IPS. uh, um, Cisco has an IPS. It's called Snort IPS. It's currently Snort version 3. Palo Alto also has an IPS solutions. FortiGate is also having an IPS solution. But there are some open source solutions as well. Like we have an IPS solution called there is Snort, there is a Suricata as well. Both are network-based IDS solution, which look at the network-based malicious activity. There is the host-based IPS or IDS solution, which looks at the host level, suspicious activity on the registry level, file level, system level, process level, BIOS level as well, which is called OSSEC, or there's one more called Wazoo. Okay, so these are the IPS and IDS solutions. So yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Then can you explain DDoS attack and how to prevent it?
Sure. So DDoS attack is, uh, basically there's a attack called a DOS, which is denial of service attack. In this case, the target server, the victim server, is actually overwhelmed with, lots and lots of fake traffic, such that it cannot really serve the genuine request. And that situation is called denial of service. Okay, where the server is not able to serve a genuine user. So this is denial of service. But when this request comes in from this fake traffic, comes in from global, comes in from global computers, compromised computers, like my mobile phone, which might be compromised and might be used as the attacker army. So, or maybe somebody from Malaysia, or somebody from Philippines, someone CCTV camera got compromised, or maybe the victim might not be knowing it, but that CCTV camera can be used to launch an attack on that target server, and might be sending the fake traffic, right? So this is called distributed denial of service, where the source IP address of the attacker is, or the compromised machine, I would say, is distributed. It's global, and the target is single server, right? So that's called distributed denial of service attack. Now the compromised computers, the compromised army of computer is called botnet, because they never know, they are just compromised, and they are completely under control by the attacker to launch an attack on the victim server. So now there could be different types of attack. It could be a flooding attack, it could be crash attack. There could be an attack which could be on ICMP level, network layer. There could be an attack on the application layer. uh, there are different ways to prevent such attack. There are some solutions by a service provider, which in case of denial of service attack, if they sense it, they keep taking those traffic in their backhaul. They clean, and then they process those traffic, remove the fake traffic, and send you the clean traffic. That's called anti-DDoS services by the service provider like AT&T, Verizon. They all do it. Uh, there are good solution. The only good solution I would say is to use the web application firewalls. So we have Akamai, Imperva, and Capsula, Cloudflare, and these are the must-have solution. You in most of the situation, the targets are the web applications, which is available in the in the internet. So we can use a web application firewall in between, so that whenever the attack comes in, it will first serve by our web application firewall, and then if it, since it's a DDoS attack, it might drop all the DDoS traffic and send you only a clean traffic. So that's the one solution. So yeah, that's DDoS attack. Yeah.
Okay. And Rajneesh, please tell me what is data protection in transit versus data protection at rest?
So data protection in transit, I mean, the data in the organization can be seen in three part: data at rest, data in motion, and data in use. So when we say data in use, is maybe endpoint used by the, I mean, just like we are using data in use, right? Because we have our computer, we are using it right away. But data at rest can be our storage servers, right? Stored on the database, not being used at a specific moment of a time. But data in transit is like data going on the wire. Okay, so when we can protect the data in transit by making sure it's encrypted all time, right? So when data is going from server to the client, that's data in transit. When data is just exit and it exists in the database or hard drive, that's the data at rest. So in order to ensure we need to make sure we have an encryption. That becomes very very important in the case of transit. But when the data at rest, there are a lot of other controls required. Of course, we need the data loss prevention software. We of course need the encryption. We also need to make sure we have enough access control. We need to make sure we are running proper vulnerabilities management as well. So that's the data protection required on both the cases. So yeah.
Okay. So Rajneesh, can you please explain SQL injection and how to prevent it?
So SQL injection is basically a type of code injection attack where attacker, it's actually the victim is the database, okay, database of the server. So in this case, the attacker can create an SQL query, or in such a way that it can execute, or maybe it can manipulate the data uh, in such a way that it can execute the malicious statement to retrieve the intentional information, right? uh, just in the regular space, if we have a database, we use the SQL query to retrieve, to verify if this specific data exists in this specific table, in this specific row or not, or maybe in the column or not. If this exists, then I can say yes, the data exists, I'm all good. Or it is even used by the web server as well to verify whenever we sign up or log into our account. The web server on the front go back to the database and verify if this username password exists or not. If this exists, we get succeed and we get the login into the network. So that is used for a good purpose, but the attacker can manipulate this SQL query and can retrieve the all the information that he can use for malicious purpose. So some queries can be used to say that maybe a boolean expression saying that I need to see the data which justify this condition called 1 to 1. 1 is equal to 1, but 1 is equal to 1 is true for all the row or all the fields, right? So it will give me entire table, entire database itself. So that's actually exploiting the entire network, right? Although currently there are not a lot of SQL injection possible on many of the website because it's being a very old vulnerability, but still it does exist on some of the old outdated servers, I would say. So it can be prevented if you have enough sanitization, input sanitization happening on the server side itself, where you make sure if someone is sending the good request or a bad request. So if you can create a checklist or the list of certain bad requests or SQL injection requests, you can be sure, okay, it's a malicious request, I should really deny this. Or maybe you can, but it's very difficult to prepare a list, whitelist it, right? Because there could be a wide range of possible good requests. So it's better to work on the bad request because that's where you can drop the request directly. So that's SQL injection attack. Yeah.
Okay. Then
Mhm.
can you please explain MITM attack and how to prevent it?
Well, MITM is the man in the middle attack, which is the type of attack where hackers can place himself between the two party, and then he can intercept the communication. He can eavesdrop. He can he can possibly impersonate any party and redirect the connection to somebody else and can retrieve all the relevant information. It's possible in the Wi-Fi based attack. It's possible if the attacker is sitting in the same network. So that's possible. Or even if the attacker can intercept the SSL handshake happening to the web server, he can do that as well. So there are multiple solutions being used for this. First and very important is the VPN SSL inspection. I mean, encryption is very important. Making sure all the website, all the connection that you establish with any website or when anybody or any application, it has to be encrypted, right? So you need to make sure that SSL or TLS. Now SSL is called TLS. 1.3 is being used. Valid certificate is there. We have us you using the strong WPA2 encryption method while you connecting to any Wi-Fi. You're using IDS solution. So yeah, this is important.
Okay, perfect. Then can you please tell me the different layers of OSI model?
Sure. OSI model has got 7 layers. It starts with the physical layer. Then we have data link layer, second layer. Then we have network layer, which is the layer 3. Then we have transport layer. Then we have session layer. Sixth layer is presentation layer. And then on the top, we have application layer. Now, let me tell you about each one of them. Physical layer takes care of the physical media. It's wire, cable, communication media, right? Data link layer is all about handling the layer 2 information, uh, where the switch resides, right? The layer 2 switch resides where the forwarding happen based on the MAC address. Every device has got a physical address that's called MAC address, and information is sent based on the MAC address of the packet of the frame, right? Of the device, sorry. Then on the layer 3 we have a network layer where the router sits. Routers and IP protocol, routing protocol sits. They take care of it, and where the data is sent based on the IP address, the destination IP address. Every router sees the packet and then send it based on the routing table. And then we have transport layer. Now, transport layer, where the socket to socket communication happen, where the ports are used like TCP and UDP. So TCP, if we are using TCP, it is used for more reliable communication. UDP is used for unreliable communication. Basically, why it's so? Both are used. Both are used in a different situation. If let's say you want to have one-to-one communication, you want to make sure for every packet you must get an acknowledgement. You should go for TCP. But let's say you want to broadcast to maybe thousands of people at once or millions of people, you can't really expect to have an acknowledgement from everyone. You can just keep sending the traffic. In that situation, you use UDP, right? So that's the difference. And then you have session layer, where the session establishment, session termination, session management happen. And next we have presentation layer, where the data encryption and data encoding, all the things related to the SSL is also done. Finally, we have an application layer, where the actual data is consumed by the user, where the application protocol like SMTP, right? Protocol like STTP is all served on it, right? So when we use the browser, we are actually accessing the HTTPS traffic. When we send an email, we see the SMTP traffic, right? So that's how the OSI model works. So yeah.
Okay, perfect. So Rajneesh, this is all I have. All this 20 interview questions. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Jamin, and thank you so much, everyone, for watching this video. If you have any question, do let us know in the comment section. I would love to answer that. Thank you so much.